Hello, in this video we are going to cover alert, so the alert component. So an alert, let me just implement a really simple one and you can see what they are. So you can implement them inside of a column if you want to. You don't have to necessarily. It's going to keep it all consistent. If you don't, you could specify its width, and you might want it to go all the way across. You might want it to be anchored at the bottom. You'll see why I'm saying that, because when you see it, you'll immediately recognize it from other websites. So we're going to put a div, and then the div requires a class, and you need a class of alert. Then you need essentially a theme. I'm gonna put primary. I will show you the all the other themes that are available in a second. You can specify the role, which is alert. I'm gonna get the word out then, and then we're gonna need an ID. This ID is optional. We're gonna be using this in a little bit later in this video via JavaScript, hence why I'm just pouring this in now. Again, you can call it whatever you want, and I'm going to say primary alert. You can put whatever text here you want, depending on what the alert is saying. Maybe the alert is saying please accept some sort of data protection act agreement. Maybe you need to reset your password. Maybe something's going to expire in 5 days, something along those lines. For refresh, there we go. We have this alert, and it spans 6 columns. So let's just say 12 instead. So it spans all the way across in this particular row. So this is a basic alert. So on the alerts page, and I'm going to provide a link to this in the description, so don't worry, you will be able to see all this. These are all the different themes. So you just use alert dash secondary or success, depending on what you're trying to, the message you're trying to convey. So if, let's say, maybe this appears when the user puts the incorrect password and email combo to log in, you could have like an alert, a danger alert. If maybe they've successfully posted something, you could have a green alert. Maybe, let's say their account is going to expire in 30 days and they don't have automatic renewal. You don't necessarily probably want danger, maybe you want warning, or if it's just something else, you might want some of the others. That's a basic alert. So now let's cover a slightly more, I want to say complex alert, but with a bit more information. So let me just duplicate that. So this is what we get. We get another alert, and I'm just going to change this just to keep things fresh. I'm going to say danger, and I'm going to have no ID because we're not going to be using this in JavaScript later. And in here, instead of just doing this, we're going to have a h4. So we're going to have a header tag. You can have whatever header tag you want. I'm going to have a class, and the class is going to be alert-heading, which is built in, provide some styling, and I'm literally just going to put the text heading. Then we're going to put a p tag, and in here I'm just going to say main body. This is some awesome intellectual content. And let's put a horizontal rule. Again, this is just the styling. And I'm going to put a p tag. And I'm going to say extra information. You'll see what this produces right now. So this is what has been produced as a result of it. In here, I just want to mention, like inside of this alert, you can put any sort of HTML you want. You can put spans, divs, images, videos. I guess you never know, you might want a YouTube video there to explain some feature of the website. Maybe the user doesn't seem like they're aware of what they need to do. Maybe they're clicking the wrong button, for example. So you can put whatever you want in there. So this has just provided a bit more information, like a little heading, some text, and then some extra information. But again, you can put as much information as you want. This is just a great example that is provided on the official website, so I thought I'd just show you that. And as you can see, there's some rounded corners on all of it. You could obviously modify the border radius in CSS if you wanted to remove that. And anything else I want to show you in terms of this? Oh yeah, so if you look, there's quite a bit of a big gap here. If you want to remove that, we can use a built-in margin utility by applying a class MB, which is margin bottom dash 0. and this removes the margin. So obviously they still, you know, a bit of padding, but that's just for some of the other, you know, just general, you know, elements that we're using. But it's removed it for this particular p tag, and it looks a lot cleaner. Now let me show you another type of alert, another type of alert that allows you to press a close button and it fades away. So what we are gonna do is I'm gonna grab the first one, because you could combine into one of these, but I'm just gonna have a simple one. You don't really need nothing complex. I'm gonna put this as a warning one this time, again, just for the sake of, you know, varying things up. You need to put the class alert dash dismissible, make sure I'm spelling it correctly, then fade and show. The role is fine, and we do want an ID here. I'm gonna call this a last alert, and in here I'm just gonna put a strong tag. Again, this is optional. I just want to say error, error, error. Please deal with all errors immediately. And if I save that and refresh, we get this, but we want a little X button here that closes it. To do that, you just put the button tag, and the type is button, and the class is close. Again, this is all just built-in stuff the classes are. I'm going to put data dash dismiss equals alert, so we are dismissing the alert, and an area dash label, not label, equals close. And if we refresh that, we don't get anything because we need to actually sort of show something. So we're going to show an icon, and we're going to put a span area dash hidden equals true, and in there I'm going to put ampersand times semicolon. There we go. Now we have it. So if I click that, it disappears. So that's a great way of showing an alert, and maybe you want them to be able to, you know, get rid of it. So just in case it's, you know, annoying them, you know, you see it all the time. Something will pop up at the top. It might be asking you to, you know, accept some agreement. It might be, you know, something to do with cookies. Then you can just dismiss it. They might actually have a button that just says okay or continue or already agreed. You know, essentially it's the same thing as having that X, you know, thing. You know, you could put something else in here if you want to, as long as, you know, this is still providing this, because this is what dismisses the alert. So that's some simple alerts. Now let's actually use some JavaScript to manually show and hide an alert. So I'm going to create up here a few buttons. So I'm just going to use divs for the buttons. Just keep it really simple. Alt-12. Again, you can use whatever sort of styling format elements you want. I'm going to put strong, and I'm going to say show alert. And this is going to have an ID of show alert. Again, you can rename this whatever you want. I'm just keeping it simple. This is going to be called hide alert, and this will show the text hide alert. So if we scroll down now, we want to actually put some JavaScript. So we will generally put it after all of the other script tags have loaded, and you could either put it in some script tags here, or load in an external JavaScript file that has all this code. Just keeping it here just to, you know, keep things simple. So first of all, we want to get the, you know, element from our website. To do that, we do first alert equals document dot get element by ID, and the ID is first alert, and this refers to this right here. We're also going to get the last alert as well. So this is last alert. Capital L. We're also going to get the triggers, you know, buttons. So show and hide alert. I'm going to call this show trigger, and this is going to be document.get element by ID, and the ID. The button had an ID of show alert. This is going to be hide trigger. Remove the T accidentally. Hide alert. And now what we're going to say is, let me just add some empty lines so I can easily scroll up and down. I'm going to say show trigger. So this is just some basic JavaScript. This is not a JavaScript, you know, video or tutorial series, but obviously, you know, it is useful to have that knowledge. So a function right here. Don't need that for this. And here you could actually trigger another function that you have created. So maybe you want to reuse this code again and again, or you can just say something like first alert style display. So modifying the display immediately like this, and I'm going to say block. So it'll be a block level element, which is what a div is. And if the hide button is pressed, you'll change the display to none. Hide trigger. So if I refresh, if I click that, nothing's happening. But if I click that, that goes away. It shows it, goes away, shows it. So that is how you hide and show a trigger. An alert or any sort of element on your website, really, via some other, you know, external trigger. In this case, it's a button. It might be a timeout trigger. After a few seconds, maybe you want it to disappear. It might be if there's another alert that appears, then you only want, let's say, only one or any maximum 3 alerts appearing. And now what I want to show you is how can we detect when we click the close button, because I think that's a useful thing to be able to detect as well. So last alert.add event listener, and we're listening on close.bs.alert. When it gets triggered, we call this function, and in here we could obviously call another set of functions if we wanted to. And in here, I'm just going to put a console log, and this is going to say closing, closing, closing. Save that, refresh, and if I click that, it's closing, closing, closing. So that is it for alert. Like I said, I will provide this in the description, and there's also some other cool stuff in terms of links. So if you do have a link in there, you could use this class. And like I said, there's a bunch of really cool stuff that you can, you know, check out on their official website, and that will be available in the description. If you have any questions, feel free to pop me a message, and as usual, I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Hello, in this video we are going to take a look at badges. So a badge is actually, it's better if I just show you, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. So there are a few different badges. I'm going to put it within a column. It's usually what you would do. So let's create a heading first. So this is one way that you could utilize a badge. I'm just going to call it heading, and then you put a span. So this is the actual badge itself, is the span. And you'll have a class of badge, and then you put BG for background, and let's say put secondary for this type of color. I'll show you all the different, you know, background themes that you can use, and I'll provide a link to that website as well. So if I go new, so we have the regular heading, but this is the badge. It's just a little bit of styling. So let me show you it in a button. I think you'll, you know, become a bit more clearer, you know, the use of this. So if I get rid of this and create a button, say type of button is gonna have a class of btn. And I cover buttons in a separate video, so this video isn't about buttons at all, so feel free to check that out for more information about that. So let's just say this says notification, so you could click on it and go to all your notifications. If I put a span in here now, which is very similar, I'm going to put a class of badge as you normally would. I'm going to put a background, but I'm going to put danger this time. This is just, a different type of theme. And let's say if I put the number 4. Save that, refresh, we get the button, and we have a little badge in there. So I think that, illustrates, more what a badge is. It's usually attached to something else, and it provides some sort of, almost like alerting information that you want the user to be attracted to. So when we're looking at that, we're looking, there's 4 notifications. Maybe it's 4 new notifications, 4 unread notifications. It depends on the way you're designing your website. And you can also have a badge that is a bit more rounded. So if you look at this, it's got a slight rounded corners, but if you want it more rounded, what you can do, and you can actually make the current badges these spans into the rounded one that I'm going to do, but I'm just going to create a new one just to show you. So if I put span, so you don't need any extra button or heading to attach this to. You could do it on its own potentially. Let's put a class of badge, and you put rounded pill, not ill, pill, and then you just put the BG, the background as you normally would. I'm going to put info, so it's a different type of color scheme, just varying it up a little bit. Put information, and if I refresh, we get that. So that is just more of a rounded badge, and like I said, you can apply it to this and to this one right there. So this one is a lot bigger because it is within the heading. So if I was to change this to, let's see, H4 for example, it's all a lot smaller. So that is it. If you have any questions, feel free to pop me a message. There'll be links in the description to the GitHub page, the Discord channel where, I'm helping, but there's, hundreds of community members as well. So you can, hit them up so in case, I'm unable to, respond. And yeah, just in general, I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Hello, in this video, we are going to cover breadcrumbs. So let me show you what a breadcrumb is. I'm going to create a nav, and I've got a separate video covering navs, so feel free to check them out. I'm going to put an arealess label on breadcrumb. Like I said, I've got a separate video covering navs and nav bars and all of that, similar type of navigational stuff. But this isn't, explaining what a nav is. But in here, what we can do is have an unordered list, and we'll have a class of breadcrumb, and in there we can have a few list items as we normally would with unordered list. No, I mean ordered list, because it's you will be unordered, my bad. And for a class of breadcrumb dash item, and in here we can put, I'll just put home first, and I'll modify it so it looks a bit better after. You can have as many as you want. You can have 1, 2, 3, 4, as many as you want. So user, and let's say profile. If I save that, and if we go, we got this nav. So the gray part is the nav, but this is the breadcrumb. So imagine if we're on the profile page, it's just basically saying the profile page is part of the user sort of system page. That's part, before that you would go to the home page. Usually these would be clickable, so we can actually do that. So that's what I was about to do, but I didn't do because I wanted to show you what it would look like without it being, a href tag or an anchor tag with href attributes. Href equals, I'm just going to put hash, so that way, it's not doing anything. Obviously you can make a link to a certain page if you have a certain page on your website, and we can do this for this one as well. I'll do the square root. That was pretty cool. And there we go. If I refresh, we got 2 no clickable things. Again, they don't do anything because this is a front end. This isn't the purpose of that. If you have some back end and you want to go to another page, you've got to use a page, your home page potentially, you can do that. The reason we have made profile clickable because it's the one we're already on. And what you can also do you can actually provide a class of active, and it's recommended for the area current to be set to page as well. It's just slightly grayed out. It's just for a bit of extra styling that's built in, but you don't have to do that. You can leave it as the default black. You can provide your own styling. It's totally up to you. So that's it. That's it for breadcrumbs. It's a really great way of showing the user essentially the flow of the website that they've gone through and how to get back to, instead of constantly clicking backwards. If you have any questions, feel free to pop me a message. And as usual, all the links will be in the description, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Hello, in this video I am going to show you buttons. So button is, I think you know what a button is, something that you usually click on, but that's not really the point of this video, to be able to click on buttons. Obviously you can implement whatever functionality you want, link it with some JavaScript, jQuery, potentially backend with PHP, for example, whatever you want. This is just the front end component that is a button that Bootstrap provides. So a basic button will look like this in Bootstrap. And let's say if you have a type of button, and it could have a type of submit, for example. It could be inside a form. That's fine. You can wrap it up and do extra stuff as you want to. And for it to be a Bootstrap button, you need a couple of classes. You need BTN, and then you need basically the theme class. So I'm going to put success, and I'm also going to put an ID here. This is optional. We're going to be using this later in the video just to be able to detect clicking via JavaScript. I just think that's a cool thing to know as well. So I'm going to say click me, and if I save that, we get this button. So it is green, and it doesn't do anything. Like I said, you can make it into a submit button. You can actually make a anchor tag into a button as well, which we're going to be doing later in this video, and link that however you want. So I'll provide a link to this page which shows you all the button stuff. We're going to cover pretty much all of it now, but obviously I won't be covering all these different little themes. I've just covered the success one, and I'll use a few others as well just to vary it up, but you can see all the different ways of doing it. Another way of creating a button is to make an outline button. So when you put the theme, what you put is btn -outline and then the theme type. So it could be primary, it could be info, it could be success in this case, and I'm just going to say outline button. Apart from that, its functionality is the same. Refresh, we get an outline button. Now when we hover over it, it goes to the primary theme color, which in this case is green for success. And again, all of this is covered here. Okay, so the next thing I want to show you is how to create a large button. So to do a large button, all you do, it could be any type of button, it could be any theme, it could be outline, not outline, it could be an input button, an anchor button, all stuff I am going to show you. It could be a button inside of like a button group, which is a separate video which I'll be doing as well, whatever you want. All you do is here you put btn-lg, so for large, and that's it. And I'll show you the other size while I'm doing sizes. And I need to get rid of this ID. Should only ever have one ID that's the same, plus yeah, we don't need it. Okay, so we need one more. I'll copy it again just because I've removed that thing now. And the other size is SM for small. So the only two button sizes, technically three, and I'll explain that in a second. So large is slightly bigger, small is slightly smaller. So like I said, there's three sizes: large, small, and the regular, normal, or medium, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so the next thing that I'm going to show you is a block level button. So again, we can copy and paste this, and you can keep the size. The size doesn't matter, but I'm going to remove it just for the purpose of this. And to put a block layer, I'm going to leave it just to show that the block level element and the sizing of small or large can be used at the same time, because block level sort of is sizing as well. So you just put btn-block, not clock, I'm gonna say block level button. If I refresh, that's what we get. So basically the actual button will fill the entire width of its parent container. In this case is this, div which spans 12 columns. So yeah, so that's what it does. If I was to put 6, for example, which is half the grid size, it now only spans that much. So if I go back, and this will always span its parent's full width, as you can see when it is resizing. So you'll see buttons like these, especially when it goes down to mobile sizes. Instead of having loads of buttons on the same line, this makes it easy to have one big button on a single line. Look, so that's a block level button. And what about yeah, okay, so next I'm gonna show you the disabled button. So what I'm gonna do is I'll get rid of sizing, I'll get rid of block. Again, you can use these. I'm also gonna get rid of this. I'm actually gonna put a different theme color. I'm gonna put primary, just to vary it up a bit, and I'm gonna put disabled button. And for this, what we are going to do is we've got BTN primary. We need a class of disabled as well, and we're also going to put a tab index. Right, yes, right. Of -1. I'll explain that in a second. We're going to put a row of button. It's best to put these rows as well for all the others. And it's also recommended to have an area disabled for, sort of disability readers, so they can detect, basically, is it disabled or not. So if I put area disabled, and I'm going to put true. Thinking this needs to be equals. There we go. True. And I think that's it. So if I save it, refresh, there we go. This is not clickable like the others. Like I said, they don't do anything because you can program them wherever you want. But this doesn't have that functionality anymore. So it's a great way of having a disabled button. So that tab thing, so if I press tab, it selected this one. Press it again, it goes to the next one, to the next one, to the next one, unless you change the tab index order. And if I click it again, click it one more time, you would think it goes to the disable button, but it goes back to because there's no more elements, it goes to the URL, and then you'll go back onto the all the other buttons, and you'll eventually get back onto the page, but it skips this. So that is great as well. The next thing I want to show you is an active button. So I'll just copy and paste this one. And the active button, I'm going to put a new theme of danger and put a class of active. I'm going to put a data toggle. You can use this for the others as well, depending on their functionality. If they're taking you to another page, doesn't really need it. I'm going to put autocomplete off for this toggle, and I'm going to put area pressed again just for disability readers is going to be equal to true. And I'm going to say this is an active toggle button. If I refresh, it is toggle. So if I press it, it is now sort of gonna lighter color. If I press it again, it's a darker color, so it toggles on and off. The benefit of this, actually, I think it might be a little easier to see what's happening if I do an outline button. So because it's already toggled, it's filled in. If I press it, it's no longer filled in. There we go. So that is a toggle button. So in case you have some sort of feature on your website and you can toggle it on and off, you could use this, for example. And it's a way of showcasing to the user that it's the toggle is on or it is off. The last thing that I really just want to show you is that we've just been doing this with buttons, but you could apply this sort of button Bootstrap component to an Ahref as well. That is more than doable. So I'm just going to put hash here. I'm not going to navigate to any page, but you could do. I'm going to put a class. You just put btn, then btn dash danger, for example, or whatever theme you want. Put a role as button. I'm going to say link. And the other one that we can have is an input. And this is a class. Again, this is not a HTML tutorial, and I do have an HTML tutorial series, so feel free to check that out. This is just showcasing that you can apply to anything that you would conventionally sort of use as a sort of a button feature in HTML. You can apply your button component from Bootstrap, because there may be specific functionality from an input tag, from an Ahref tag that you want. You can still maintain that. So type is going to be button. The type could be submit as well. It's totally up to you. Value, and let's put input button. Refresh. There we go. And they essentially they look indistinguishable from the others, but they will have their own specific functionality. This being an Ahref, this being an input tag. So that's it. If you have any questions, feel free to pop me a message. There will be a link to the source code in the description, along with Discord page and a few other useful links as well. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Hello, in this video I am going to show you button groups. So I highly recommend that you watch the buttons video, which covers the button component in Bootstrap. So this is just basically going to show you how to group them together. So I'm not going to be explaining what buttons are in terms of the classes, etc. Okay, so if we go in and we create a div, and this is going to have a class of btn dash group. It's going to have a role. I'm going to give it the role of group. And have an area dash label for disability readers. We're going to say basic example. Again, you could put something a bit more contextual than that. We're going to put a button here, and I'm going to have a type, not b button, but I'm going to have some classes. Now, again, this is just normal button stuff. So I'm going to put btn primary for the theme color system, and I'm going to put left as a text, and I'll just see why I'm doing that in a second. Yeah, but you can put whatever you want. I'm going to put 3 different ones in this group. You can put as many as you want. You can put 2, 3, 4, 20, I guess. And I'm going to put outline dash secondary. You can keep them all the same theme. I'm just showing that you don't have to. Put middle. And I'm going to put danger. Right, refresh. So that is our group. So you group them together, and as you can see, we got a bit of a border radius, a bit of a curve on the corners for the one on the left and the right, but any in the middle don't have that. So they indicate that they are together. These colors actually go pretty well together, to be fair. What you can also do, I'm gonna put a couple of break lines just because. Gonna have another one of these, and we don't want them to be touching, no particular reason, just for aesthetics. And you can also put btn dash group dash vertical. It doesn't matter what's inside, and this just makes it vertical. That's literally it. So the other thing that you can do is actually have a button toolbar. I accidentally clicked Command R before I moved over, but you can have, like I was saying, a toolbar. So I'm gonna copy and paste this. And we're gonna have a div. It's gonna have a class of btn dash toolbar. It's gonna have a role of toolbar area dash label. And I'm gonna put toolbar here. Toolbar with button groups. Okay, so within here we can just have a group as we normally would, And I'm just going to tab this out. And what I'm also going to do is make them all primary. It just looks a little nicer when they're all the same, but that's not a requirement. I'm going to put this as 1, 2, and 3. I'm going to have a total of 3 groups inside here. You can have as many as you want. And in the last one, I'm just going to have 2 buttons just to show you that they don't all need to have the same number of buttons in each group, 7 and 8. And yeah, I'm happy with that. So if I refresh, that's what we get. But I think, what's the use of that? And I'll explain in a second. So as you can see, even though they are together, they are, distinguishable because they are a different group. So let's just add a bit of a margin. So put a MR-1, and you can experiment with the type of margin you want. You could put your own custom class, that's fine as well. And even though this really isn't going to affect anything, I'd like to put it there though, just in case there is another group at the end, but you might not. So there we go, it has moved over. So what is the purpose of having a button group like this? So these 3 may, toggle or be linked to one particular type of feature. These 3 may be linked to another, and these 2 may be linked to another. Okay, let's say they're linked to pages, for example. And these 3, let me think of an example. Maybe it is for some sort of video game selection, and the first 3 are for a particular console. This is for another console, and this is for another console, but they're all sort of linked. Maybe they're the same genre, for example. They could be anything, but the thing is, I'm sure you've seen this sort of stuff on other websites, and this is how you create it. And all of the other extra stuff that you can do with button groups is on this page. There will be a link to this in the description, so feel free to check that out. And anything that you can do with the regular button, which I've covered in the button video, like outline, you can do here. You can, put toolbars in there, you can size them, you can nest other features like drop down, which I'll be covering. You can do, obviously I've done the vertical orientation, so feel free to check all that out. As usual, if you have any questions, feel free to pop me a message, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Hello, in this video I am going to show you how to implement cards. So cards are a cool way in Bootstrap of organizing data together, and once I can show you the implementation and what they look like, you'll be like, I'm sure I've seen similar things in other websites, especially social networking websites, blogs, that sort of thing. You'll get some sort of card system. Okay, so first of all, what you want to do is create a div with a class called, I think you guessed it, card, not cart. And in here, what we want to do is, in here you can actually put a lot of different stuff. So if you go to the Bootstrap website for the card section, I'll provide a link to this with this video, and you can see all the different types of things you can add. There's stuff to do with navigation. I mean, there's a lot here to do with colors. I'll cover, I'll say a reasonable amount of it, but just enough to basically get you started and so you understand what it is all about. So I'm going to add an image. Again, this is just, optional. It could just be purely text or links or buttons, for example. And I'll add this source in a second. Class is called card-img-top. Top because it's at the top. You can have one that's at the bottom as well. Feel free to experiment with that. We can have an alt tag. I'm just going to put ... Obviously, feel free to make it more contextual. And for the source, I've got an image right here that I've queued up. Cool picture of Batman. Again, you can use whatever you want. Okay, so let's next we're going to create the actual card body. So if I put div class equals card-body, and I'm going to put h5, and I'm going to put title class equals card-title. Okay, so next what we're going to do is put a paragraph tag, and this is just for some extra text. Again, feel free to go to the Bootstrap website for more information on cards and all the different things you can add. This is just one of the examples that are given, and I quite like this example. I think it perfectly illustrates what cards are all about. So card -txt, and I'm just gonna put some bio for Batman. So I've already got this right here. I'm just gonna put a little bit. I'll put that much. That should be fine. You can put as much as you want, but if you put too much, depending on the size of the card, it can just sort of look a bit weird. But feel free to experiment with that. And I want to add one more thing, and I'll add basically a button. So feel free to check out my video on buttons, button groups, that sort of stuff, to understand more about the classes and the themes they can use, like BTN primary. Now I'm just going to say I'm Batman, so okay, so save that, go back, refresh, and there we go, we got our card. So if I was to resize the browser, this is what we get. It slowly goes down, but this is pretty big on the large screens. So what we can do, we can customize this as we normally would. So I'm going to leave it to be span all of the columns, or 12 spaces in the row when it's on the smallest screen size. But let's say once you get to medium or above, I'm going to put -6. And when it goes to large or above, I'm going to put LG-3. So those are the breakpoints I'm going to be using. Feel free to experiment. So it's at 3 at the moment. So if I add 3 more, they'll fit on the same line. I'll show you that in a second. And as you can see, the next one, it should be half the actual container, not half the website. Obviously, I had a fluid container, be half of the width of the browser, and now it's gone to the extra small screen size. So let me actually duplicate this. So we've got a fair few there. So this is what we get now. So as you can see, if I resize them, they all look pretty cool. So it's looking kind of like a social media website. So I'm pretty sure you see the benefit of using cards, and you can theme any individual one of them by going to the card class and put in like BG, which is background dash Seth, for example, and that's the background done. And you can get that information from here, which again I'm going to put a link to this in the description. There we go, background colors. You can also do borders as well, so feel free to check all of that out. And yeah, okay, so here's a little extra task for you. I want you to figure out how to remove or actually add a gap here. So when the cards are on top of each other, you want a little slight gap. It doesn't look good if they're connected, aesthetically speaking. So that's it. Any questions, feel free to pop me a message, and as usual, I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Hello, in this video I am gonna show you masonry cards. So the masonry card system, I've got a Google search on masonry bricks right here, is similar to the way you have masonry bricks, which is essentially the regular brick system that you will probably see around the world. So essentially, they're not all in line. Some are slightly shifted. They may be in line, every row or two, but again, that's not always the case. Plus, as you can see, there's variation. So you get, let's say these ones and slightly thinner ones. Basically, they're not all equal. So that's basically what masonry is. But they are all together. They are, no matter what the size is, they've all sort of adjusted. And with a masonry card system, you can take this, pretty much to the extreme. So what you want to do is go to this website where the masonry link is. So this is a little important thing to read. So it basically says in version 4 they actually had a built-in masonry system, masonry like columns, but they removed it in version 5. You can still do it in version 5, which I'm going to show you. I remember implementing it in version 3, and in version 3 you needed an external thing, like it wasn't even on the website, I don't believe. And then in version 4 they made it built in, which was fantastic. But version 5 they sort of taken it out because they were saying that it created a lot of unpleasant side effects, which you can click on this link and you can just read about it on GitHub. Okay, so if I scroll down, go to demo example. Really, the only thing we need from here is two things. One is this, which is the masonry JavaScript file. So copy that, and that's basically what it looks like. Where they're all sort of bunched together, but they're not all in the same size, and they all just sort of cool and move around. Okay, so I'll go to the bottom of the page. Just accidentally clicked enter. Click enter and paste here. And now what we need to do is grab a hold of this, add this to our div that has a row class. So which is this one here. Obviously, the one that has all the cards in it, not some random one. And this is a attribute, so save that. If I refresh. As you can see, it's sort of even if they're all the same size, it does this cool thing where it has a bit of animation. But now let's actually make them different sizes. To do that, I'm literally just going to remove random content from them. Let's remove that. Let's remove this. Obviously, you will probably have these cards, populated via some sort of, let's say, database or via some sort of user input, and that way, you don't know what's gonna, be in there, so you can't, pre-program it. So let's save that and let's see what we get. So as you can see, they are all different sizes, and let me actually remove the background for this one. They are all different sizes, but they are all still sort of bunched together. They all still sort of move around as you would expect. As usual, what I want you to do, not as usual, but as an extra task, which I actually mentioned in the card video, is figure out how to actually put a slight gap when there's one card on top of another card. I think you'll look pretty cool. If you do have any questions regarding that or anything else, feel free to pop me a message. You can either comment on the video. You can even message me via Discord, which there'll be a link in the description. Plus, the entire community is on there. So even if I can't assist you or I'm to take a day or so, somebody else will. And feel free to check out our website, solarlearning.co.uk. Again, all of that is in the description, so feel free, however you can figure it out, contact me or the community. And as usual, I look forward to seeing you in the next awesome programming bootstrap video. Hello, in this video I am going to cover how to implement a carousel. So if we go to the official Bootstrap website, a carousel is something along these lines, where you have essentially a bunch of sliding images, and you can add text, you can add a bunch of different things inside of it. Okay, so let's get right to it. To implement it, you ideally want it within a container, row, column. Technically you could have it outside, but you just looks really good when it's breaking down with the Bootstrap breakpoints. So I'm going to put a div ID of epic carousel. You can call this whatever you want. I'm just calling the epic carousel. We will need this to refer to it later on within the carousel for stuff like the buttons, for example, because technically you could put them somewhere else. Okay, so we're also going to have a class of carousel, and it's going to be slide. I'm going to have data-ride attribute, and this is going to just be carousel. Okay, so in here, first of all, we want to put a ordered list, and in here we're going to have the list items, basically the number of slides that we'll have. And this is essentially, the buttons. You can think of it like it is, these right here. You don't have to have them. So I'm going to put a link to this in the description. So feel free to check it out. All the different features available, whether it's, Crossfade, for example, JavaScript, for example, whatever it is, feel free to have a look at it. But I am going to add the indicators because they look cool and they're, good to, navigate with. we need a class called carousel dash indicators, and we're gonna have a list item, and this is our data dash target of, and you put hash, and then this ID that you put here. So if you change it here, make sure you change it here as well, and anywhere else that we use it as well. I'm going to put data dash slide dash 2 equals, and you just put a number. The first one you just put 0, then increment it by 1, so 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. I'm gonna put a class of active because this is the first one that will be active. If you want the second one to be active by default, or the third one, or the fourth one, you know, you feel free to put active there. We don't need the active class anymore because we only needed that for whichever one was initially active, and we don't need anything inside of the list item. So next, what we're going to do is create a div, and in here this is going to have a class of carousel dash inner, and in here is basically where, if we go back to this, is these main actual sliding items are going to be placed. So carousel inner, inside of here we have another div, and each one of these is the carousel item, which is, you know, the slide. So we're going to say class carousel dash item, and you just put active again only for the first one, or whichever you know button is set to active. So if it was this one, which is technically the second one, you would put this as active, and then you put the second carousel item as active. I also notice I made a little mistake here, and this was meant to be incremented, so 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. I did actually mention that, I just forgot to put it in. Okay, so next, here is where you can really put whatever you want. I think images work really well in a carousel, and you can just have an image, but we're gonna have some text as well. Again, feel free to check out the Bootstrap website. They have a bunch of different variations, and feel free to experiment yourself. You can use pretty much whatever HTML element that you want and make it your own carousel. Okay, so IMG source, feel free to put whatever you want. I've got a bunch of nice images that I found on Google. They are all the same resolution and ratio. It helps if they, more importantly, are the same ratio. So this is a 16:9 ratio, and the resolution is 1920 by 1080. If they're not, it just doesn't look very good. As an extra task, I recommend that you change one of the images, because the source code is available on GitHub, so you can get exactly what I'm doing. I recommend that you change one of the images to something, I don't know, like anything that's not 16:9, and you'll see what I mean. Okay, so we're going to have a class. It's going to be d-block, and so it's a block element, and I'm going to have w-100, so it's going to have a width of 100%. So this just basically means it's going to show all of the image. It may not be displaying at the full resolution, but it works better with the grid system. And now that little red error has disappeared because we've closed off the tag. Next, what we're going to do is put our div, and this is going to be a class of carousel dash caption d-none and d-md block. So I'll explain what that does in a second. First of all, I just literally want to put a h5 tag in here, and it's going to just say first slide, so that you can think of this as the title. Feel free to put whatever you want, and then I'm going to put a paragraph tag in there. You could put a bit more information in here. I'm going to keep it simple, put epic image 1, but feel free to put some more descriptive information in there. Again, feel free to structure the inside of the carousel caption however you want. So what do these two do? it displays it none, which means it doesn't display it at all, unless it is on a medium screen size or above. So medium, large, extra large, or extra extra large, it will be block level element, which it's going to display it. If it's less than medium, the breakpoint, so small or extra small, just because the carousel gets a little too small, having text on there can really obstruct the image. When it's big, the text doesn't take up that much room relative to the image, but when it's small, it can take up half or even more than the image. So you want to generally just get rid of that, and that's one item done. Instead of typing all this out again, we can just copy and paste this like so. And there's a couple of changes we need to make. We're going to say second slide and epic image 2. We're going to say third slide and epic image 3. And we need to change the source files. You could have the same one, but I think it looks better. Just hit the mic then. So if you just heard a little horrible sound, that's what it was. And if we go back, copy this. Again, feel free to use whatever images you want, probably something contextual to whatever, website or whatever content that you've got. And okay, so that is now saved. So what we want to do now is, actually, let's give it a run. Let's just see what we get. So we get this, inspect. Okay, we've got no console errors. As you can see, we got the third slide, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so it isn't properly working. So, let's have, that's why, because again, I forgot to remove active on those other two. So, now it works great. And as you can see, it breaks down. And when you get to medium or less, less than medium, the caption is no longer displayed. But now let's actually add the backwards and forward button as well. Again, these buttons are optional. You do not have to add them if you do not want to. But again, I think you just add to the navigability. Is that even a word? Navigability? The ease of navigation. Okay, so we need an anchor tag. We're going to have a class of carousel dash control dash prev. So this is the previous control. So this is what will move it one slide left or one slide backwards. We're going to have a href. The href is literally going to be, I'll scroll up here, this ID right here. So again, we are using that ID. Next, we're going to have a role. And the role is going to be button. Then we're going to have a data dash slide. And this is going to be just prev for previous. And in here, we're going to have a couple of spans. And the first one, I'll copy and paste this, is going to have a class of carousel dash control dash prev dash icon. So it just shows the previous icon, which is an arrow pointing left. Again, you can put whatever arrow you want. Ooh, it's my timer. Ignore that. That's just saying my chicken is ready to flip. It's fine. I'll just do it a little less on the other side. It's no biggie. Okay, just go to monitor the time. Yeah, that's fine. It's roughly 10 to now. Okay, previous icon, area dash hidden equals true, and that's it. We're not going to have anything inside the span itself. We're going to have a class of sr dash only, so this is for screen readers, but it's good to put this in there. So it is great that Bootstrap provides all of this built in. We can copy and paste this, because as you can imagine, the next button is very similar. We just have the next class. We're still referring to Epic Carousel. This is for next, and this is next, screen reader will say next. Apart from that, we should be all ready to go. Refresh. There we go. We can move backwards and forwards. So that is it. That is how easy it is to implement a carousel. Feel free to check out the source code on the GitHub page if you want to, just have a quick look at it. Recommend, obviously, if you follow along, it'll help you a lot more. And I will provide a link to this in the description. There's a lot more information on here and what to do. I also want to note one thing. If you go to here and let's say you copy and paste all of this code, it won't work, or it'll look like it's not working. It's because if you look here, there's no source for the images. So I remember the first time I did it in Bootstrap 2 or 3, and I think it was Bootstrap 3, and I copied and pasted. I was like, why isn't it, showing up like this? It's because these are actual images, and those images aren't they're here somewhere, but those images aren't in here. So just make sure you do put some images, otherwise it just won't look right. So that is it. If you have any questions, feel free to pop me a message, and as usual, I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Hello, in this video I am going to show you the close button. So one second, I'm just going to move the mic a little nearer, so if you hear some rattling, that's what it is. Okay, so the close button, really simple. It is just a button. It's just a class for a button or some sort of other input element that you can use that puts an X there. Simple as that. So all you do, if you want to use a button element, you just put it you normally would with a type of button, put a class, and this is the important part. You put close. This is built into Bootstrap. Area-label equals close, and in here we're going to have a span. It's going to have area-hidden equals true, and it's going to put ampersand times. This is just required for it, and refresh. There we go. We have our close button. That's it. It is just a way of displaying a X, which is conventionally used for closing. For hover over that, you get a X right there, and you can put this in whatever you want. You could put this in another button, you could put this in a form, you could put this in whatever you want, and then you could attach functionality using JavaScript, and potentially that JavaScript could call some sort of Ajax, for example, which allows you to call the backend codes, for example, like PHP. I've just realized I've said for example like a million times, but that is it. That is how you implement a close button. Probably best if I end the video now, because when I'm done, 2, I'll probably say for example another million times. So thanks for watching. Look forward to seeing you in the next video. Hello, in this video we are going to take a look at collapsible items. So this is great if you have quite a bit of information and you don't want to show it all at once on screen. Because imagine if you've got a bunch, different sections, and depending on what the user wants, they can open up a particular section. That's where a collapse comes in, and it's really simple to implement. So first of all, you want some sort of button to basically trigger this. So I'm gonna wrap it up in a p tag just so it's a block level element, but you can do here however you want. I'm gonna put a button, and the class doesn't actually matter. This literally is just for styling in line with the style system in Bootstrap, but you could do it however you want. This isn't actually a requirement. A type of button. You could use that Ahref for this, and you can get more information about that on the Bootstrap website. I will provide a link to this where it shows how to do a few more extra stuff, including some detection with JavaScript as well. So okay, we got a type of button. Then we need to specify a data toggle attribute, and this is just going to be collapse. So that's basically what it's doing. And next we need to have a data-target, and this is an ID of something that we're going to collapse and open. We haven't created it yet, but I know what I'm going to assign as the ID. So hash specifying that you are targeting it using its ID is, I'm going to put epic, collapse. That's what I'm calling it. And I'm going to put area dash expandable, or expanded I should say, equals false. And then we are going to put area dash controls, and this is going to be epic collapse. Okay, so we don't need to put anything inside the button other than just some little basic text like show more. And now we're going to actually, because if we reload this, the page, this is what we get. We get this button right here. Doesn't do anything right now. I'll refresh the actual text editor. That was a little mistake on my part. Now we're going to actually create the thing that collapses, you know, that opens and closes. So we're going to put a div, we're going to put a class of collapse. Then we're going to have an ID, and this has to be the same as this right here. And now what we're going to do is put a, you know, in here you can put whatever you want. It's literally up to you. I'm going to use a card that we've already covered in a separate video, so feel free to check that out. Card, I'm going to put card dash body. Keep it simple, but you can make it more complex. You can put a video in here, an image, text. You can put links in here, whatever you want. And I'm just going to put the lorem ipsum text, which is commonly used as placeholder, as a placeholder, I should say, not as placeholder, as a placeholder. And if I save that, we should be ready to go. So if I give it a reload, click that, it opens it, closes it, opens it, closes it. That's basically what it is. Nothing more to it than that. If, for example, after this, added some random text, this is what it looks like. And then let's see what happens if I was to open it. It just moves anything that's below it in the HTML structure, even though you may not be able to see this yet, it just moves that down. So simple as that. Okay, you can also target multiple, you know, items. So if I was to duplicate this, and let's say if I put an extra ID in here, I'm just going to call it extra ID or extra class. That was a nice little sneeze there. Wonder how many of you said bless you. Okay, so paste that there, and instead of doing a data dash target on an ID, well, we would do it on a class, which is dot and then the name of the class. If I reload, as you can see, it expands all of them. And you know, you technically could have, you know, text in between as well. That's fine as well. You know, they don't have to be joined. And yeah, it's as simple as, I'm just going to change it back to the single ID, but that's it. If you have any questions, feel free to pop me a message, and as usual, I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Hello, in this video I am going to show you how to implement a collapse, you know, a collapsible component, but using the accordion style. So feel free to check out the regular collapse video. Highly recommend, even if you are looking to implement an accordion style collapse, still recommend that you check out the collapse tutorial so you can get an idea of how that works, because this is essentially expanding on that on a theoretical level, and you know, some of the code will be similar as well. So the accordion style collapse allows you to have, you know, I'll just show you right here because it's on this website. It's like this. If you open one, or any other one that's open, which should only be one, it closes it. So they are all linked. To do this, it's pretty simple. I'm going to get rid of what we've already got. Save that. So we shouldn't have anything left anymore. So first thing that you want to do is put a div, and you're going to put a class of accordion. And we're going to have an ID. We will be using this inside, so you know, keep a note of the name, epic example. And now we're going to have a card, and this is going to have a class card. Again, you can have whatever sort of structure you want in their cards. These are pretty good for, you know, laying out information, for example. And we're just going to put another div, and I'm going to have a class of card dash header, and this is what you would be clicking on to, it'll be these essentially here. And you can style it however you want. You can provide color, totally up to you. Different font size, style, it's totally up to you. So card header, we're gonna have an ID. I'm gonna keep it simple, let's call it heading 1, but feel free to do something a bit more contextual. And now what we're gonna do is inside of here, you can format this however you want, but I'm gonna format it with a H2. I'm gonna put a class of MB-0, so this is 0 margin at the bottom. We're gonna have a button, which is the thing that you click to open and close a particular section. So button class, feel free to style this button however you want. It is totally up to you. And text dash left, type equals button, data dash toggle equals collapse, data dash target equals, and this is going to be called collapse 1, which is the main body. We have not created that yet, but we will be creating that in the next minute or so. Area dash expanded equals true. So we will have one expanded by default. Area dash controls equals collapse 1, and then let's close that item off, and I'm simply going to put in here item 1, just keep it simple. And then outside of the header, we're going to have the main body, which hides and closes, and it's going to have an ID of collapse 1, which is what we use right here. So make sure you put the correct IDs. That is very important. That can prevent it from working. I've done that before. It happens to all of us. Collapse show. So this is should look very familiar. A lot of it really should, from the collapse video. Labeled area labeled by heading 1, which is what we name this right here. And we're gonna have a data dash parent equals, it is literally just epic example, and because it's an ID, put hash. And now we're just gonna put some content in there. I'll move it around a bit with the keyboard. I'm gonna put a div, put a class of card dash body, and in here I'm going to get this lorem ipsum text. You can put whatever you want in here. Save that and refresh. So at the moment we don't have any other items, so we need to create them, and the best way to actually create them is literally just to duplicate the card. So this card right here, if you duplicate this, and I'm going to create it so or implement it so there's a total of 3, but you can do as many as you want. There's a few changes that you need to make in all subsequent cards. You need to change this ID to heading 2, and you need to change, this should be heading 1, like so. Actually, no, I didn't want to change it there. I wanted to change it here. So make sure you label it properly. Heading 2, that should be that there. You keep that ID the same. This should now be called, or this should be targeting collapse 2, and collapse 2. And where it says area expanded, we want all others to be false, so they are closed. So we only have one open by default. I'm going to call this heading 3. Easy way to remember based on the naming system we've done. just got 1, 2, 3 for everything that we've put. Pretty easy way to remember, to be fair. Heading 2, class 2. Okay, I think that's it. Apart from area expanded, we want to be false. Reload. And okay, we also want to change this to 3. Okay, that shouldn't really actually. So yeah, they are all showing, which is not what we wanted. They are also what else? What else is wrong? Also, we also need to add on the button itself. There's another class we need to add. It's only on the ones that are collapsed. It should be this one. It is the collapsed class. No, it's so easy to miss something off. Save that, refresh. Okay, so still got a bit to go. Let's have a look. See if we got everything. So BTN, BTN link, block, text left, collapsed. Okay, so far so good. Type button, data toggle is, that should be a lowercase c. I don't know why I put an uppercase c for that. They are all still showing. Also, we've got show on the first one. We do not want that on the others. I have a good feeling about this refresh. Yeah, let's see if it works. Okay, so that didn't fully work. So I'm gonna have a guess it's something to do with the targets. So let's have a look. So we're heading 2, collapse 2, collapse 2, heading collapse 2, heading 2. Let's go down here. Class 3, heading 3. That should be collapse 3, heading 3. Reload. And they all look all good now. Yes, that is it. They are all working fantastic. So that is how you implement an accordion style collapse system. If you have any questions, feel free to pop me a message. You can message me on Discord, on my website sonarlearning.co.uk, and a bunch of other different ways, all of which is in the description. The GitHub link will also be in the description, so you can check out the source code because there is a fair bit here. And that's it. I look forward to seeing you in the next awesome video.